Psychiatrist Walter Freeman popularized lobotomies throughout the U.S. He used electric shock as an anesthetic before forcing an ice pick beneath the eye socket bone into the brain of the patient. He then moved the instrument back and forth to sever the fibers of the frontal lobes. He traveled the country performing over 4,000 brain operations. The procedure caused a 10% death rate, with more than 10,000 people killed worldwide during psychosurgery's heyday. And aside from the Nazi doctor Joseph Mengele, known as the Butcher of Auschwitz, Walter Freeman ranks as the most scorned physician of the 20th century, and for good reason. When Freeman came to Hollywood, his victims included actress Frances Farmer. At the age of 29, after a string of failed relationships, she was committed to a psychiatric institution. What was promised to be the rest and treatment she needed, it was the ruin of her career, as she was subjected to 7 years of brutal and debilitating electroshocks and drugs. When she tried to escape from the hospital, psychiatrists punished her with more electroshock. When she failed to become a model patient, she was given hydrotherapy, stripped naked and thrown into a tub of icy water for 6 to 8 hours at a time. And unable to muster any resistance due to her drug-induced stupor, she was raped by orderlies and rented out as a sex toy for local soldiers. Farmer's last treatment was at the hands of lobotomist Walter Freeman. She died at the age of 57, destitute, and her spirit broken. It wasn't just the film star who suffered at the hands of psychiatrists. The stories of musicians are similar in that the pressures of fame and fortune often lead to self-doubt, despair, and drug abuse. This causes many to seek help in the mental health industry. This help, unfortunately, can lead to tragic consequences. Some of the better-known musical artists who suffered or met their end while being treated by psychiatrists include Stevie Wright of the Easy Beats and jazz pianist Bud Powell. Both these artists were irreparably damaged by electroshock and psychiatric drugs. Jazz singer Billie Holiday, Stevie Nicks of Fleetwood Mac, and Chuck Negron from Three Dog Night were all victims of failed psychiatric drug rehab programs. One of the greatest jazz saxophonists of all time, Charlie Bird Parker and Brian Wilson, singer-songwriter of the Beach Boys, were both devastated by psychiatric drugs. Wilson paid almost $500,000 to his psychiatrist and only began to improve when he left his psychiatrist's care. Michael Hutchence, lead singer of In Excess, and 60s rock legend and singer Del Shannon both committed suicide while on psychiatric drugs. And perhaps the most devastating to the youth of today, the suicide of Nirvana's Kurt Cobain. Diagnosed from preschool as having the bogus mental illness hyperactivity, Cobain was one of the growing wave of children who since the 1960s and 70s have been exposed to addictive, mind-altering drugs under the guise of educational help. Cobain had been prescribed Ritalin for years. Moving from an addictive psychiatric drug to an addictive street drug, Cobain said he used heroin, in his words, to quench the fire in his gut. Abdominal pain is a common side effect of long-term Ritalin use. 36 hours after entering a psychiatric drug rehab center, he fled from the program, and in a small room above his garage, he ended his life with a single shotgun blast to his head. Heroin and the addictive psychiatric tranquilizer Valium were both found in his bloodstream. Now, even though we've profiled only a handful of tragic stories, there are many, many more in Hollywood and other centers of the entertainment industry. All these tragedies could have been avoided, but these and others occur out of ignorance of the methods, means, and motivations of psychiatry and psychology. People in desperate situations, whether a film artist or a musician, the person next door, or even you watching this presentation, should be wary of so-called help coming from a psychiatrist in the form of drugs, unproven therapy, institutionalization, or worse. Through the propaganda and marketing of the psychiatric and pharmaceutical industries, America has become a drugged society. And every story we've just illustrated has that common thread. And to those who ask, what's the alternative? There is an answer. People in desperate circumstances must be provided with proper non-psychiatric care, sound medical attention, good nutrition, a healthy, safe environment, and activity that promotes confidence will do far more for a troubled person than repeated drugging, electroshocks, and other psychiatric abuses. Whether artists whose lives have been damaged by psychiatric treatment are in Hollywood's past, or on the covers of today's magazines, or have yet to be discovered, the unworkability and destruction of psychiatric and psychological practices continue to claim victims from our community of artists. We have mourned the great artists we have lost too soon. Let's not grieve for more. My name is Dave Figueroa. In conclusion, I'd like to invite you to call for a free booklet called Harming Artists, Psychiatry Ruins Creativity. And as you read the information, you'll realize that by going to a psychiatrist, you'll receive only a psychiatric solution that I've shared with you in this program, for they have nothing else to offer. This has been a presentation of Freedom Magazine, investigative reporting in the public interest since 1968. Order your free booklet now.
According to estimates, over 1 billion people live in appalling levels of poverty. Denied even basic standards of food, water. Nearly half of the world's population earns less than.
Good morning. I'm here to read you your rights.
My what?
We're all free and equal. Don't discriminate. You have the right to life.
You have the right to life and to live in freedom and safety.
You have a right to education. You have a right to your own things.
You have the right to Social Security. You have the right to play.
You have the right to democracy. You have the right to asylum.
have the right to take responsibility.
And no one
And nobody can take these rights and freedoms away from you.
Why are you doing this?
You have a right to know.